The whine of the dying engine faded as Ryan Cole powered down his salvage ship. The Nomad. Outside the viewport, Outpost 7K sprawled like a corpse, all jagged metal and broken promises. Red dust, the telltale residue of Union bombardment, clung to every surface, painting the abandoned industrial complex in the colors of old blood. Ryan unstrapped from the pilot's seat, his movements efficient and practiced. 14 years salvaging the ruins of war had taught him to waste nothing, not fuel, not time, not emotion, especially not emotion. "Atmosphere scan complete," announced the ship's AI in its flat, utilitarian voice. "Oxygen levels acceptable. Toxicity minimal. No biological signatures detected." "No surprises there," Ryan muttered, pulling on his worn exosuit and checking the seals. The outpost had been abandoned for at least 5 years, according to the salvage registry. That meant anything of real value had likely been stripped already. But Ryan had developed a knack for finding treasures others overlooked. He strapped his pulse pistol to his hip, more out of habit than necessity, and shouldered his salvage pack. The airlock hissed open, releasing a cloud of stale air. Ryan paused at the threshold, surveying the desolate landing pad. Twisted metal frames reached toward the pale blue sky like skeletal fingers. In the distance, the outpost's central hub rose against the horizon, its once gleaming dome now cracked and dulled. 6 hours, he reminded himself. In and out. Any longer, and the maintenance cost would eat into his profits. Not that there were likely to be many on this run, but Ryan had learned to survive on margins others would scoff at. He stepped out onto the landing pad, boots crunching on the mixture of dust and debris. The silence was absolute, broken only by the occasional groan of settling metal as the outpost's remains shifted in the thin wind. Ryan moved with purpose toward the central hub, scanning for salvage opportunities along the way. This was his life now, planet to station, ruin to wreckage, always alone, always moving. It suited him. No attachments meant no losses, no betrayals, no disappointments, just the clean simplicity of survival. Ryan had one rule that had kept him alive in the lawless expanse since the Union Wars. Salvage. Don't interfere. Take what's abandoned. Leave what isn't. The galaxy was full of tragedies, and he couldn't shoulder them all. He'd learned that lesson the hard way. The entrance to the central hub was partially collapsed, forcing Ryan to squeeze through a narrow gap. His exosuit's lights illuminated the cavernous interior, once a bustling marketplace and administrative center. Now, a tomb of broken furniture and scattered data pads. "Hello, beautiful," Ryan whispered, spotting an intact server bank against the far wall. Those often contained valuable tech, sometimes even proprietary algorithms that could fetch a decent price on the gray market. He approached, running a scanner over the unit. The device beeped encouragingly. "Minimal corruption, viable data storage." Ryan allowed himself a small smile. Maybe this wouldn't be a waste after all. He set his pack down and began working on extracting the server's core. That's when he heard it, a sound so unexpected it froze him mid-motion. Static, then a voice. "Please, is anyone there?" It was small, high-pitched, trembling with fear. A child's voice. "Please help us. Please marry my mom. Human. She's all I have left." Ryan's hand hovered over his tool belt. The comm system shouldn't be operational, and there shouldn't be anyone here at all, let alone a child. "Hello?" he called out, instantly regretting breaking his own rule of silence. The response was immediate, a desperate, whispered plea. "You're real. Please help us. They're hunting us. Mom is hurt. Please." Ryan's jaw tightened. This wasn't his problem. There were too many sob stories in the galaxy, too many traps set with heart-wrenching bait. He should ignore it, finish with the server, and leave. "Where are you?" he asked instead, cursing his own weakness. "Lower levels. Section 4. Please hurry. Mom won't wake up. Ryan hesitated, calculating. 6 hours. He'd allotted 6 hours for this salvage run. He could spare 30 minutes to check on a wounded woman and a scared kid. Maybe they had something valuable to trade for his help. Maybe it was just the right thing to do. I'm coming, he said, gathering his tools. Stay where you are. The descent to Section 4 took Ryan through deteriorating maintenance corridors and past the remnants of hydroponics gardens, now choked with dust. Every instinct honed by years of survival screamed at him to turn back, to stick to his rule. Salvage. Don't interfere. Section 4 proved to be what remained of the outpost's residential quarters. Ryan moved cautiously, scanning for life signs. His device remained stubbornly blank. I'm in Section 4, he called out. Where exactly are you? The voice came not from his comm unit, but from somewhere to his left, muffled but unmistakable. Here! We're here! Ryan followed the sound to what appeared to be a solid wall. Closer inspection revealed a cleverly disguised panel, slightly ajar. He pushed it open to find a maintenance crawlspace that had been converted into a makeshift hideout. Inside, illuminated by the glow of a single emergency light, was a sight that made even Ryan's hardened heart skip a beat. A small figure, unmistakably alien despite its humanoid shape, crouched protectively over the prone form of an adult. The child's skin was a pale lavender, with subtle iridescent patterns that shifted with each movement. Large, luminous eyes dominated a delicate face, currently streaked with tears. You came, the child whispered, voice trembling with relief and fear in equal measure. Beyond the child lay what Ryan assumed was the mother. She was clearly of the same species, though her iridescent patterns were more pronounced, intricate swirls that pulsed faintly across her violet skin. A makeshift bandage wrapped around her torso was soaked with silvery blood. Ryan crouched at the entrance, maintaining a cautious distance. What happened here? Who's after you? The child. He couldn't tell if it was male or female by human standards, clutched a small toy to its chest. The bad men. They want me. They hurt Mom when she wouldn't let them take me. Ryan's eyes narrowed as he scanned the wounded alien. Her breathing was shallow, but steady. The wound appeared to be a blade strike, not a plasma burn. That meant whoever had attacked her wanted to avoid setting off scanning systems that might detect energy weapon discharge. How long has she been unconscious? He asked, already reaching for his medkit. Basic field medicine was a necessary skill for anyone working the fringes. Since yesterday, the child replied, watching his every move with wary intensity. I tried to help her like she showed me, but the bleeding wouldn't stop. Ryan approached slowly, hands visible. I'm going to check her wound, okay? I might be able to help. The child hesitated, then nodded, scooting aside but remaining within arm's reach of its mother. The wound was deep but had missed vital organs. The alien's physiology was different enough from human to give Ryan pause, but similar enough that he recognized infection setting in. He administered a broad-spectrum antibiotic and applied a proper sealing bandage. This should help, he said, closing his medkit. But she needs real medical attention. Who are you? What are you doing hiding in an abandoned outpost? The child's luminous eyes blinked. I'm Sia. This is my mom, Rilke. We were traveling to Alara when our ship was damaged. Mom said we'd be safe here until she could fix it. But then the bad men came. Ryan frowned. What bad men? Pirates? Slavers? Saya clutched the toy tighter. Ryan now saw it was a crude doll, made from scraps of fabric, and what looked like a small data cube. Mom called them Thorn People. They had the flower symbol. Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. The Thorn Syndicate was one of the most powerful corporate PMCs that had filled the power vacuum after the Union Wars. They specialized in biotech and genetics, and were notorious for their ruthless acquisition of research subjects. Why are they after you, Sia? He asked quietly. Before the child could answer, A low groan came from Rilke. Her eyes fluttered open, a startling amber gold against her violet skin. "Mom!" Sia cried, immediately at her side. Rilke's eyes focused first on her child, relief washing over her face, then sharpened with alarm as she registered Ryan's presence. She tried to sit up, one hand reaching protectively for Sia, the other fumbling at her side where Ryan guessed a weapon would normally be. "It's okay," Ryan said, raising his hands. "I'm not here to hurt you. Your kid called for help." Rilke's gaze darted between Ryan and the child, her breathing rapid. "Who are you?" Her voice was melodic, even roughened with pain, with an accent Ryan couldn't place. "Ryan Cole, salvage pilot. I was working this outpost when I heard your kid on the comms." He gestured to the bandage. "Changed your dressing, gave you antibiotics. You had the beginnings of sepsis." Rilke relaxed slightly, but remained wary. "Thank you for helping my daughter," she said formally. "We won't trouble you further." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "You're not troubling me yet, but you will if you try to move with that wound. And if the Thorn Syndicate is after you, this outpost isn't safe for much longer." At the mention of the Syndicate, Rilke's expression hardened. "What do you know of them?" "Enough to avoid them," Ryan replied. "And enough to know that if they want your kid, they won't stop until they get her." Saya pressed closer to her mother. "He can help us, Mom. He came when I called." Rilke stroked her daughter's head, the gesture tender despite her obvious pain. "It's not that simple, little star." Ryan stood, decision made. This wasn't his fight. He'd done his good deed for the decade. "Look, I've patched you up. That buys you time. Use it to find better hiding place. I need to get back to—" A faint, high-pitched whine cut through the stale air. Ryan froze, recognizing the sound immediately. "Surveillance drone," he whispered. "Don't move." He crept to the edge of the hideout, peering through a crack in the wall. Sure enough, a sleek black drone was hovering in the corridor outside, its scanning beams sweeping methodically across the debris. Thorn Syndicate design, military grade. Not something used for routine salvage security. Ryan's mind raced. The drone hadn't detected them yet, thanks to the makeshift shielding of their hideout. Probably why Rilke had chosen it. But it was only a matter of time before more thorough scans picked up their heat signatures or breathing patterns. He had a choice to make. 6 hours, he'd told himself. In and out. No interference. But there was a wounded woman and a frightened child behind him. And ahead, the harbinger of people who would treat them as property, not persons. Ryan reached into his pack and pulled out a small EMP device, useful for disabling security on particularly valuable salvage. One press of the button would fry the drone, but also alert its operators that someone was here. Saya's words echoed in his mind. "Please marry my mom, human. She's all I have left." Such a strange plea from a child who probably didn't even understand what marriage meant to humans. But the desperation behind it, that, Ryan understood all too well. He pressed the button. The drone dropped like a stone, its systems fried. Ryan was already moving, gathering his pack. "We need to go. Now. They'll send more when that one doesn't report back." Rilke struggled to her feet. One arm clutched around her wounded torso. "Our ship isn't operational." "Then you're coming with me," Ryan said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "My ship can hold 3. It's not comfortable, but it's fast." Rilke's amber eyes widened. "Why would you risk yourself for strangers?" Ryan didn't have a good answer, not one he was willing to voice. "Anyway, instead," he said, "the Syndicate and I have history. Consider this my way of settling a score." He extended a hand. "Can you walk?" Rilke nodded, though her face was tight with pain. "Sia, gather only what we need." The child moved quickly, stuffing a few small items into a worn backpack, the doll never leaving her grasp. Ryan led them through the maze of corridors, taking the least direct route back to the landing pad. His mind was already plotting jump coordinates, calculating fuel consumption for the extra weight, identifying potential safe harbors. They were halfway to the ship when the distant sound of engines broke the silence. "They're here," Rilke whispered, clutching Sia closer. Ryan cursed under his breath. "This way," he said, ducking into a service tunnel. "There's a maintenance exit that leads directly to the landing pads. If we're lucky, they won't have spotted my ship yet." Luck, it seemed, was not on their side. As they emerged onto the landing field, Ryan saw a sleek black shuttle touching down near his own vessel. Armored figures were already deploying, weapons at the ready. "Back," he hissed, pulling them into the shadow of a collapsed loading crane. "We need another way out." Saya tugged at his sleeve. "Mom can fly anything," she whispered. "She was a pilot before." Ryan glanced at Rilke, who nodded grimly. "Union Navy, 3rd Fleet." That explained a few things. The Union Navy had employed several non-human species, including ones Ryan didn't recognize. After the war, many veterans had found themselves stranded in human space, targets of suspicion and worse. "There's a secondary landing field on the far side," Ryan said. "Maintenance and emergency vessels. Might be something salvageable." They moved as quickly as Rilke's injury allowed, skirting the edges of the outpost. Ryan's mind raced. His ship contained everything he owned. Abandoning it meant starting over with nothing but the gear on his back. But staying meant facing a Thorn Syndicate retrieval team. And that meant death. Or worse. The secondary landing field was little more than a cleared area, with minimal facilities. 2 derelict shuttles rested there, their hulls scarred by the same red dust that covered everything else. Ryan approached the first, running a quick diagnostic. "Fuel cells depleted, life support non-functional." He moved to the second. "This one's better. Minimal fuel, but enough for a short jump. Basic life support intact." Rilke examined the controls, her expression focused despite her pallor. "I can work with this." A distant explosion rocked the ground beneath their feet. "They found my ship," Ryan said grimly, "and they're not happy about it." Saya looked up at him with those enormous, luminous eyes. "Are you coming with us?" Ryan hesitated. The smart play was to split up, increase the chances that at least some of them would escape. He could head into the outpost's underground levels, lose himself in the labyrinth of maintenance tunnels, maybe find another way out. But the child was looking at him like he was some kind of hero. And Rilke, for all her fierce independence, was injured and responsible for a young life. "Yeah, kid, I'm coming with you." He helped Rilke into the pilot's seat, then secured Sia in one of the passenger restraints. "Where are we headed?" Rilke's hands moved over the controls, bringing ancient systems back to life. "Anywhere but here." The shuttle's engine sputtered, then roared to life. Ryan strapped himself in, watching as Rilke executed a flawless emergency takeoff, the vessel shuddering around them. As they broke atmosphere, Ryan caught a glimpse of black ships rising in pursuit. Thorn Syndicate interceptors, sleek and deadly. "They're following," he warned. Rilke nodded, her face set in grim determination. "Navigation computer is offline. I need coordinates for a jump." Ryan hesitated only a moment before rattling off a string of numbers. "Asteroid belt in the Ceres minor system. Mining operation abandoned after the war. Good place to hide. Make repairs." Rilke punched in the coordinates, her fingers dancing across the controls with practiced ease. "Jump in 3, 2, 1. The stars streaked around them as the shuttle lurched into hyperspace. The pursuing ships would follow, but they'd gained a small head start. In the sudden quiet, Ryan became aware of Sia watching him intently. "What?" he asked, uncomfortable under that alien gaze. "You saved us," she said simply. "Like in the stories Mom tells me." Ryan shifted in his seat. "Don't get used to it, kid. I'm not in the saving business." Rilke glanced back at him, her amber eyes unreadable. Then what business are you in, Ryan Cole? Survival, he answered honestly. Same as everyone else these days. The shuttle hurtled through hyperspace, carrying its 3 passengers toward an uncertain future. Ryan stared out at the swirling chaos beyond the viewport and wondered just what he'd gotten himself into. And why, for the first time in years, he didn't entirely regret it. The Ceres Minor asteroid belt was a graveyard of broken dreams and abandoned equipment. Once a thriving mining operation, it had been caught in the crossfire of the Union Wars, its workers evacuated or killed, its resources left untapped. Now it provided the perfect hiding place for a damaged shuttle and its 3 fugitives. Ryan guided Rilke to a larger asteroid that housed the remains of a processing facility. Its outer docking ports were still functional, allowing them to secure the shuttle and move inside without exposure to vacuum. We should be safe here for a few days, Ryan said as they made their way through dark corridors, lit only by their emergency lights. The Syndicate will track us to this system eventually, but it'll take time to search the entire belt. Rilke nodded, one arm still pressed to her wounded side. The jump had taken a toll on her, her violet skin now ashen, her steps increasingly unsteady. Sia stayed close to her mother, one small hand clutching Rilke's, the other still holding her makeshift doll. Her luminous eyes darted nervously around the abandoned facility. They found what had once been a foreman's office, a self-contained unit with its own emergency power and life support. Ryan sealed the door behind them and activated the ancient systems. Lights flickered on, and stale air began to circulate. Sit, he told Rilke, gesturing to a dusty couch. I need to check your wound. For once, she didn't argue, sinking onto the couch with a barely suppressed groan. Ryan knelt beside her, carefully removing the bandage he'd applied earlier. The wound looked worse, the edges inflamed, the silvery blood now tinged with an alarming blue. Ryan frowned, reaching for his medkit again. Infection spreading, he murmured. The antibiotics I gave you should have handled it. Rilke's eyes met his. My people process some human medications differently. It may have slowed it, but not stopped it. Ryan cursed under his breath. What do you need? There might be medical supplies here. Stellar moss, she replied. It grows on my homeworld. We always carried some for emergencies, but our supplies were on our ship. Ryan had never heard of stellar moss, which meant it wasn't something he'd find in an abandoned human mining facility. He applied a fresh bandage, mind racing through alternatives. Saya approached, her small face solemn. I can help, Mom. She held out her doll. I put some inside Mimi, for safekeeping. Rilke's expression softened. Oh, little star, that was very clever of you. The child carefully opened a seam in the doll, extracting a small pouch. Inside was what looked like dried seaweed, glittering with tiny points of light. Ryan took it gingerly. How do we use it? Crush it and apply it directly to the wound, Rilke instructed. It will draw out infection and accelerate healing. Ryan followed her instructions, grinding the strange substance into a paste and applying it to the wound. Rilke hissed in pain, then relaxed as the moss began to glow faintly. It's working, she murmured. Thank you, Sia. And you, Ryan Cole? Ryan secured a fresh bandage over the moss. Don't thank me yet. We're still stuck in an abandoned mining facility with the Thorn Syndicate on our tail. Sia clambered onto the couch beside her mother. Why are the bad men chasing us? Mom, you never told me. Rilke hesitated, her eyes meeting Ryan's over the child's head. A silent question passed between them. Ryan shrugged. If I'm risking my neck for you, I should probably know what I'm up against. Rilke sighed, stroking Sia's head. The Syndicate wants Sia because of what she is. What we both are, she paused. Our people were among the architects, the builders who created the hypergates, the terraforming engines, the technologies your people now use without understanding. Ryan raised an eyebrow. You're saying you're progenitors? the mythical species, said to have seeded the galaxy with technology thousands of years before humans achieved spaceflight. Descendants, Rilke corrected. Much diluted by time and interbreeding. But we carry certain genetic markers, especially Sia. She's what your scientists would call a throwback. More of the ancient DNA expressed. And the Syndicate wants this DNA, Ryan concluded, to access progenitor tech they can't otherwise control. Rilke nodded. Sia is more than a source of genetic material to them. She's a key. The progenitors built safeguards into their most powerful technologies, genetic locks that respond only to their own kind. The Syndicate believes Sia can open doors that have remained sealed for millennia. Ryan leaned back against the wall, processing this information. If true, it explained the Syndicate's determination. The corporation that controlled progenitor tech would dominate the post-war economy. So they want to use her like a living key? The concept made his stomach turn. Yes, and they will not be gentle about it. Rilke's arms tightened around her daughter. I've been running since before she was born. Her father died ensuring our escape from a research facility. We've been hunted across 17 systems. Sia looked up at her mother. Is that why you won't let me go outside on planets? Because of the bad men? Yes, little star. Rilke kissed the top of her head. I'm sorry you've had to live this way. Ryan watched them. This alien mother and child bound by love and fear. Despite their differences, the emotion between them was unmistakable and universal. What's your plan? He asked Rilke. You can't run forever. There's a sanctuary, she replied quietly. A hidden colony of my people and others who escaped the wars. It's protected by ancient defenses the Syndicate can't penetrate. If we can reach it. Where is it? Rilke shook her head. I can't tell you that. Not yet. I'm sorry, but I've trusted too many who betrayed us. Ryan couldn't blame her. Trust was a luxury few could afford these days. Fair enough. For now, we focus on immediate survival. Food, water, repairs to the shuttle. He stood. I'll check the facility for supplies. You two rest. As he moved toward the door, Sia called after him. Are you going to marry my mom? Ryan froze, then turned slowly. Why do you keep asking that? Sia blinked at him, as if the answer were obvious. Because Mom needs someone to help her. And you're kind. You saved us. Rilke's face flushed a deeper violet. Sia. Humans don't. It's not the same for them. She looked apologetically at Ryan. In our culture, marriage can be a protection bond as well as a romantic one. A way of extending family security to those in need. Sia doesn't understand that humans view it differently. Ryan rubbed the back of his neck, uncomfortable. Well, kid, where I come from, people usually date for a while before getting married. Get to know each other. Sia's luminous eyes widened. What's dating? Ryan backed toward the door. Your mom can explain that one. I'm going to find us some food. He escaped into the corridor, Rilke's embarrassed apology following him. As he moved through the abandoned facility, his flashlight illuminating dust-covered equipment and empty workstations, Ryan found himself smiling for the first time in days. The kid was something else, and her mother. Well, Rilke was clearly capable, intelligent, and fiercely protective. Under different circumstances. Ryan shook his head. He was being ridiculous. Once they were somewhere safe, he'd go his own way. Back to salvage runs and solitude. Back to not caring about anyone but himself. It was safer that way. The security alert caught him in what had been the facility's mess hall, where he was gathering preserved rations. A high-pitched beeping from his wrist unit, followed by the AI's flat voice. Proximity alert. Vessels entering the asteroid field. Detecting active scan patterns. The Syndicate had found them sooner than expected. Ryan abandoned the food, sprinting back toward the foreman's office. He burst through the door to find Rilke already on her feet, fastening Sia's worn jacket. "They've found us," she said. Not a question. Ryan nodded. 3 ships, from the scan signature. Small but armed. Probably a retrieval team rather than a full assault force. They must have followed our hyperspace wake. Rilke straightened, visibly pushing past her pain. The shuttle won't outrun them. Not with the damage it sustained during our escape. No, Ryan agreed grimly. But this facility has its own defenses. Automated turrets, a debris shield. Mining operations were valuable targets during the war. They were built to withstand attacks. Rilke's eyes sharpened with interest. Can we activate them? If the control center is intact, yes. Ryan hesitated. But it would mean splitting up. Someone needs to stay with Sia. I'll go, Rilke said immediately. I have experience with defense systems. Ryan shook his head. You're injured. I'll move faster alone. He looked at Sia. Stay with your mom. Kid, keep her safe. Sia nodded solemnly, clutching her doll to her chest. Hurry back. Ryan gathered what gear he might need. Tools, his pulse pistol, a portable scanner. If I'm not back in 30 minutes, take the shuttle and run. Don't wait for me. Rilke caught his arm as he turned to leave. Why are you doing this, Ryan Cole? You could take the shuttle yourself. Leave us behind. Ryan met her gaze. Maybe I'm tired of running away. He gently removed her hand. 30 minutes. The control center was 5 levels down, in the heart of the asteroid. Ryan moved as quickly as he dared through the darkened corridors, aware that every minute counted. The syndicate ships would be deploying search parties. And this time, they wouldn't be subtle. He found the control center locked down, emergency protocols still in place after all these years. It took precious minutes to bypass the security, using tricks he'd learned cracking similar systems during salvage runs. Finally, the doors slid open, revealing a circular room filled with dust-covered consoles. Ryan moved to the main terminal, brushing away years of accumulated grime. Come on, he muttered, powering up the ancient systems. Screens flickered to life, displaying status reports and security feeds. Most of the external cameras were dead, but one showed a clear view of the docking area. A sleek black shuttle had already attached itself to one of the ports. Armored figures were emerging, weapons drawn. Ryan cursed, fingers flying over the controls. The defense systems were offline, power diverted to life support and minimal operations. Rerouting the power would take time they didn't have. He glanced at the security feed again. The syndicate operatives were inside the facility now, moving with the precision of trained hunters. 6 of them, heavily armed, with scanning equipment that would quickly locate their quarry. Ryan needed a diversion. He accessed the facility's internal systems, searching for something, anything he could use. His eyes fell on the atmospheric controls. The mining operation had used a mix of gases to process certain rare minerals. Some of those gases would still be in the sealed storage tanks. It wasn't elegant, but it might work. Ryan programmed a cascade failure in the atmospheric system, setting it to release the stored gases into specific sections of the facility, creating a toxic barrier between the syndicate team and the foreman's office where Rilke and Sia waited. Then, he turned his attention back to the defense grid. If he could bring the turrets online, they could target the syndicate ships, preventing reinforcements and possibly providing cover for an escape. A noise behind him made Ryan spin, pulse pistol raised. One of the syndicate operatives stood in the doorway, weapon leveled at Ryan's chest. The figure was encased in sleek black armor, face hidden behind a featureless helmet. On the breastplate, a stylized thorn pierced a red flower, the syndicate's emblem. "Step away from the console," the operative ordered, voice distorted by the helmet's speaker. Ryan's mind raced, calculating angles, distances, chances. His finger tightened on the trigger. "I wouldn't," the operative warned. "Pulse weapons and volatile gases don't mix well. You might take me out, but you'd blow this whole section to pieces. Ryan slowly lowered his weapon. What do you want with the kid? The operative tilted their head slightly. Above my pay grade. I just retrieved the assets. They gestured with their weapon. Now, where are they? Gone, Ryan lied. Took the shuttle as soon as your ships appeared on the scanner. They're halfway to the jump point by now. The operative was silent for a moment, likely consulting internal displays. No shuttle has left the facility. Try again. Ryan shrugged. Worth a shot. Then he lunged. Not for his weapon, but for the console, slamming his hand down on the emergency purge control. Alarms blared as vents in the ceiling hissed open, releasing clouds of greenish gas. The operative fired, the shot going wide as Ryan dove behind a console. The air filled with the acrid scent of chemicals, and warning lights flashed across the control room displays. The operative stumbled, their armored suit providing some protection against the gas, but not completely sealing them off. Ryan, holding his breath, rolled to another console, entering the final commands to activate the defense grid. Across the facility, ancient turrets hummed to life, targeting the Syndicate ships still hovering outside. The debris shield, designed to protect against micrometeorites, began to power up, its energy field creating a barrier that would prevent the ships from simply blasting the facility. The operative fired again, the shot sizzling past Ryan's ear. He ducked, lungs burning with the need for oxygen. The gas was affecting him too, making his vision blur. He wouldn't last much longer. With a final effort, Ryan triggered the atmospheric purge sequence he'd programmed earlier, then made for the exit, staying low. The operative, disoriented by the gas, fired wildly, shots ricocheting off metal surfaces. Ryan burst into the corridor, gasping for breath as the door sealed behind him. The facility trembled as the defense turrets opened fire on the Syndicate ships. Through nearby viewports, he could see explosions as the automated weapons found their targets. But the distraction wouldn't last long. The Syndicate team inside was still a threat, and the gas would disperse eventually. Ryan staggered back toward the foreman's office, his vision still blurry from exposure to the chemicals. He found Rilke and Sia exactly where he'd left them, tense and waiting. "We need to move," he gasped. "Defense grid is up, but it won't hold them for long. There's a team already inside." Rilke helped him to a chair, her amber eyes assessing his condition. "You've been exposed to something." "Mining gas," Ryan confirmed, blinking to clear his vision. "I'll be fine. We need to get to the shuttle." "They'll be watching it," Rilke pointed out. "We need another way out." Ryan forced his foggy brain to focus. "Maintenance airlocks, level 3. We can use them to reach another docking port on the far side of the asteroid. There might be escape pods or maintenance vehicles we can use." Saya approached, offering him a water flask. "Your eyes are all red," she observed. "Like Mom's." Ryan accepted the water gratefully, only then noticing the similarity between his bloodshot eyes and Rilke's natural amber. "Thanks, kid." He drank deeply, then struggled to his feet. "We should—" A massive explosion shook the facility, throwing them all off balance. Sia cried out, clinging to her mother as dust showered from the ceiling. "They're targeting the structural supports," Rilke said grimly. "If they can't capture us, they'll bury us." Ryan checked his scanner. "They've breached the defense grid. We have minutes, not hours." He gathered his pack, making sure his remaining gear was secure. "Let's move." They left the relative safety of the foreman's office, Ryan leading the way through dark corridors toward the maintenance airlocks on level 3. Rilke moved with surprising speed despite her injury. Sia kept close between them. Another explosion rocked the facility, more violent than the first. Metal groaned around them, and somewhere in the distance, Ryan heard the hiss of escaping air. "Hull breach," he warned. "The integrity fields won't hold for long." They reached level 3 only to find the corridor blocked by collapsed ceiling panels. Ryan cursed, checking his scanner for alternatives. There's another route, he said. But it takes us closer to where I encountered their team. Rilke nodded grimly. We have no choice. They backtracked, taking a service ladder down to a lower level, then navigating through what had been storage areas. Ryan's scanner showed multiple heat signatures ahead, the Syndicate team, regrouping after the gas attack. Wait, he whispered, pulling Rilke and Sia into a recessed doorway. They're blocking our path. Rilke peered around him, assessing the situation. We need a diversion. Ryan's eyes fell on a control panel nearby. Environmental systems for this section. An idea formed. Desperate but possible. The life support can be overridden, he murmured. If I trigger an emergency lockdown in that section, the blast doors will seal them in temporarily. Rilke nodded. Do it. Ryan moved to the panel, fingers dancing over the controls. On my mark, run straight ahead. Don't stop until you reach the airlock at the end of the corridor. He looked at Sia. Ready to run really fast, kid? Sia nodded, her small face set in determination. Now! Ryan triggered the override, then sprinted after Rilke and Sia as blast doors began descending throughout the section. Ahead, he caught a glimpse of Syndicate operatives turning in surprise, raising weapons. But the blast doors dropped faster, sealing off the corridor seconds before they passed. Behind them, muffled shouts and the thud of weapons fire against metal told Ryan the Syndicate team was not pleased with their imprisonment. They reached the maintenance airlock, a small chamber designed for repairs to the asteroid's exterior. Ryan cycled it open, revealing a narrow space with tool racks and several EVA suits. There should be a maintenance vehicle docked outside, he said, moving to the external hatch controls. Simple thruster pack, minimal life support, but enough to get us to another part of the belt where we can regroup. The facility shuddered again, more violently this time. Warning lights flashed across the airlock's status panel. Structural integrity at 20%, announced an automated voice. Evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. Ryan swore, rushing the preparations. Suits on, now. We may have to make a run for it in vacuum. He helped Sia into the smallest EVA suit they could find, which was still too large for her slender frame. Rilke struggled with hers, her injury making the awkward movement painful. Finally, all three were suited up. Ryan checked the seals, then moved to the external hatch. Hold on to me, he instructed Sia. Your suit's too big for the maneuvering thrusters to work properly. The child nodded, her face barely visible through the oversized helmet. She wrapped her arms around Ryan's waist, the doll somehow still clutched in one gloved hand. Ryan opened the external hatch. Beyond lay the star-studded blackness of space and the cratered surface of the asteroid. Attached to a docking clamp was the maintenance vehicle, little more than a thruster pack with rudimentary controls and a small, pressurized cabin. Go, Ryan urged, helping Rilke through the hatch. I'll bring Sia. Rilke pushed off, drifting weightlessly toward the vehicle. Ryan followed with Sia clinging to him, careful to keep his movement smooth in the zero gravity. They were halfway to the vehicle when Ryan's helmet comm crackled to life. Targets acquired, came a cold voice. All units converge on the maintenance airlock. Ryan looked back to see the airlock they'd just left cycling open again. Syndicate operatives in full EVA gear were emerging, propulsion units on their suits flaring as they launched in pursuit. Get to the vehicle, Ryan told Rilke. Start the engines. He released Sia, giving her a gentle push toward her mother. Go to Mom. Kid, quick now. As Rilke caught her daughter, Ryan drew his pulse pistol. In vacuum, the weapon's effectiveness would be limited, but it might buy them a few seconds. He fired, not aiming to hit the operatives but targeting the airlock mechanism behind them. The pulse energy struck the control panel, causing a shower of sparks even in the oxygenless environment. The airlock door juddered, then slammed shut, nearly catching one of the pursuers. But three operatives were already outside, closing fast. Ryan holstered his weapon and kicked off from a piece of floating debris, propelling himself toward the maintenance vehicle where Rilke had managed to power up the engines. He caught a handhold on the exterior, pulling himself into the small cabin as pulse fire streaked past him. "Go!" he shouted, sealing the hatch behind him. Rilke needed no encouragement. The vehicle lurched away from the asteroid, its small engines straining. Behind them, the Syndicate operatives gave chase, but their suit propulsion units were no match for even this rudimentary vessel. Inside the cramped cabin, Ryan helped Sia remove her helmet, then did the same himself. Rilke kept hers on, both hands needed for the controls. "We've bought some time," Ryan said, checking the rudimentary scanner. "But their ships will pick up our heat signature as soon as they regroup." Rilke nodded, her amber eyes visible through her helmet visor. "We need to reach the edge of the belt. From there, we might be able to transmit a distress signal to passing freight haulers." It was a desperate plan, but it was all they had. The maintenance vehicle had no hyperdrive, minimal weapons, and fuel for perhaps 12 hours of operation. Sia settled beside Ryan, her small frame dwarfed by the EVA suit. "Are the bad men going to catch us?" she asked quietly. Ryan looked down at her. Those huge, luminous eyes filled with fear, but also trust. Trust in him, a salvage pilot who'd spent years avoiding exactly this kind of complication. "No, kid," he said with more confidence than he felt. "We're not going to let that happen." As if in response to his words, the asteroid facility behind them erupted in a series of explosions, the structure breaking apart in a silent display of destruction. "They're making sure we have nowhere to go back to," Rilke observed grimly. Ryan watched the facility's death throes, thinking of all the salvage now lost forever. His ship, too, was probably nothing but scattered atoms by now. Everything he owned, gone in an instant. Yet somehow, sitting in this cramped maintenance vehicle with a wounded alien woman and her frightened child, Ryan couldn't bring himself to regret his choices. "We'll find a way," he said, and was surprised to realize he meant it. The maintenance vehicle limped through the asteroid belt, its engines occasionally sputtering as Rilke coaxed every bit of performance from the aged systems. Ryan had taken over navigation, plotting a course that kept them within the densest part of the belt, using the larger asteroids as cover against scanning systems. Sia had fallen asleep, her small body curled against Ryan's side, still clutching her doll. In sleep, her iridescent patterns pulsed gently, creating a subtle light show across her lavender skin. Ryan found himself watching the patterns, fascinated by their complexity. "What do they mean?" he asked Rilke quietly. "The patterns." Rilke glanced back, her expression softening at the sight of her sleeping daughter. "They reflect emotional and physical states. In children, they're still developing, more reactive to immediate feelings. In adults, they become more intentional. Like a language? More like music," Rilke explained. "They can be played deliberately, but they also respond naturally to our internal states." Her own patterns shifted subtly as she spoke, intricate swirls, brightening then fading. "And that?" Ryan nodded toward the movement across her skin. A deeper violet flush spread beneath the patterns. "That was private." "Sorry," Ryan said quickly. "I didn't mean to pry." Rilke's mouth curved in a small smile. "You didn't know. Among my people, asking about someone's patterns is intimate. Something done between close friends or potential mates." Ryan felt his own face warm. "Cultural misunderstanding. Won't happen again." They lapsed into silence. The only sound the hum of the engines and Sia's soft breathing. Ryan checked their position on the crude star chart he'd been able to pull from the vehicle's navigation system. "We're making progress," he said. "Another few hours and we'll reach the edge of the belt. From there, we can try your distress signal idea." Rilke nodded, her focus on the controls. After a moment, She spoke again, her voice quieter. Thank you, Ryan, for everything you've done for us. You had no obligation, yet you risked your life, lost your ship. Ryan shrugged, uncomfortable with gratitude. Right place, right time. We both know that's not true. Rilke's amber eyes held his. You made a choice. Many wouldn't have. Before Ryan could respond, the scanner beeped urgently. He checked the display, his heart sinking. Ship signatures, he reported. 3 of them, closing fast. Syndicate configuration. Rilke's hands tightened on the controls. How did they find us so quickly? Ryan scanned the readouts, a chill running down his spine. They're not following our heat signature. They're... He looked at the sleeping child beside him. They're tracking Sia somehow. Rilke's patterns flared in alarm. Impossible! Unless... Her eyes widened. The wound. When they attacked us at the outpost, they must have tagged her. Ryan gently shifted Sia, examining her for any sign of a tracking device. Nothing was visible on her skin or clothing. Could be subcutaneous, he murmured. Or... Wait. His eyes fell on the doll clutched in Sia's arms. May I? Rilke nodded, tension evident in every line of her body. Ryan carefully eased the doll from Sia's grasp, turning it over in his hands. It was a simple thing, crafted from scraps of fabric with button eyes and that data cube sewn into its chest. Nothing that should register on syndicate scanners. Unless... He ran his scanner over the doll, focusing on the data cube. The readings made him curse under his breath. It's not just a toy, he said, showing Rilke the display. The cube is transmitting, low level, encrypted, but constant. That's how they've been following you. Rilke stared at the doll in horror. Sia found it. At a trading post, months ago. I thought it was just a broken data storage unit. I never imagined. A syndicate plant, Ryan concluded grimly. They've probably been tracking you since she found it. Sia stirred, blinking awake. What's wrong? She asked, immediately sensing the tension. Ryan hesitated, then knelt beside her. Sia, we need to look at your doll. The cube inside it might be hurting your mom. The child's eyes widened. Mimi wouldn't hurt anyone. Not on purpose, Ryan assured her. But some bad people might have put something inside her that helps them find us. Sia looked at her mother, then back at Ryan. Slowly, she nodded. You can look, but please don't break her. She's my friend. Ryan carefully opened the seam in the doll's back, extracting the data cube. It was small, about the size of his thumbnail, unremarkable except for the faint, blue light pulsing at its core. Definitely a tracker, he confirmed. High-end, too. Probably tied into the Syndicate's proprietary navigation network. Can you disable it? Rilke asked. Ryan turned the cube over, studying it. Maybe. But they already have our location. Disabling it now won't throw them off our trail. He looked up at Rilke. We need to use it against them. How? Ryan's mind raced through possibilities. If I can modify it, change the signal slightly, we could make them think we've gone in a different direction. Buy us time to reach the edge of the belt. Rilke considered this. How long would it take? Not long. I've cracked similar systems during salvage runs. Ryan reached for his toolkit. But I'll need to focus. Sia watched anxiously as Ryan worked on the tiny cube, using micro-tools to access its internal components. Will Mimi be okay? She'll be fine, Ryan promised. I'm just changing the way she talks, not hurting her. The cube was sophisticated tech, but not unfamiliar. Ryan had encountered similar tracking devices in high-value salvage, usually placed by corporations to recover their property if it was lost during transit. This one was more advanced, but the principles were the same. After several tense minutes, he sat back. I think I've got it. I've reprogrammed it to gradually drift off course, making it look like we're heading deeper into the belt rather than toward the edge. He carefully reinserted the cube into the doll and sealed the seam. Here you go, kid. Good as new. Saya hugged the doll tight. Thank you for not hurting her. Ryan checked the scanner again. The Syndicate ships are altering course, following the false signal. It worked. Rilke exhaled in relief. How long before they realize they've been tricked? A few hours. Maybe less if they're smart. Ryan glanced at the navigation display. We need to push this bucket harder. Get to the edge of the belt while we still have a lead. Rilke nodded, adjusting the controls. The engines whined in protest as she increased power. The fuel won't last at this rate. We only need it to last long enough, Ryan replied. After that, he shrugged. We improvise. They pushed on, the maintenance vehicle straining under the demands placed upon it. Ryan kept one eye on the scanner, watching for any sign that the Syndicate had discovered their deception. Shia, recovered from her nap, peppered Ryan with questions about Earth, his ship, the places he'd seen. He answered as best he could, finding himself telling stories he hadn't shared with anyone in years. Did you have a family? She asked innocently. Before you became a salver? Salvager, Ryan corrected automatically. And yes, I did. A long time ago. What happened to them? Ryan hesitated, glancing at Rilke. She was focused on piloting, but he could tell she was listening. They died, he said simply. During the war, Union bombardment hit our colony. I was off-world at the time. Sia's luminous eyes filled with sympathy. My dad died too. Mom says he was very brave. I'm sure he was, Ryan said softly. You're brave too, Sia declared. You fight the bad men. Ryan shook his head. I'm not brave, kid. I'm just... Here. Saya frowned, clearly disagreeing. Mom says brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what's right even when you are scared. Ryan glanced at Rilke, who met his gaze briefly. Her amber eyes warmed despite their dire situation. Your mom's a smart lady, he said. The scanner beeped again, interrupting the moment. Ryan checked it, his stomach tightening. They've figured it out, he reported. They're changing course, heading this way. Rilke cursed in a language Ryan's translator didn't catch. How long until they intercept? Ryan calculated quickly. 20 minutes, maybe less. We're still at least 40 minutes from the edge of the belt, Rilke said grimly. Ryan studied the navigation display, searching for options. His eyes fell on a cluster of asteroids ahead. There. That dense grouping. We can use it for cover. Rilke adjusted course, guiding the straining vehicle toward the asteroid cluster. As they drew closer, Ryan saw that it wasn't just a random collection of space rocks. The asteroids orbited each other in a complex dance, creating a constantly shifting maze. Can you navigate that? He asked Rilke. Her patterns flared with determination. Watch me! The maintenance vehicle dove into the cluster. Rilke's hands steady on the controls as she threaded a path between tumbling rocks. Behind them, the Syndicate ships followed, their superior engines quickly closing the gap. They're gaining, Ryan warned. Rilke didn't respond, her complete focus on the treacherous navigation. She guided them deeper into the asteroid dance, using the shifting rocks as shields against the pursuers. One of the Syndicate ships fired, a pulse of energy sizzling past them to strike an asteroid. The rock shattered, sending fragments hurtling in all directions. Several struck their vehicle, causing it to shudder violently. Hull breach in Section 2, announced the vehicle's automated system. Emergency seals engaged. Saya whimpered, clinging to Ryan as the vehicle lurched again. He held her tight, his mind racing for a solution. We need to split up, he said suddenly. Rilke shot him a shocked glance. What? The Syndicate wants Sia. They don't care about me. Ryan moved to the vehicle's small cargo compartment, pulling out an emergency spacesuit. I'll take the doll with the tracker. Lead them away. You and Sia continue to the edge of the belt. Rilke shook her head. It's suicide. It's a chance, Ryan countered. For both of you. Another energy pulse struck nearby, closer this time. The vehicle groaned, systems flickering. Sia looked up at Ryan, her eyes wide with fear. Don't go, she pleaded. Stay with us. Ryan knelt beside her. I have to, kid. Just for a little while. I'll find you again, I promise. No! Sia clung to him, her patterns flaring wildly with distress. The bad men will hurt you. Ryan gently disentangled himself. I'll be okay. I'm very good at running away. He looked at Rilke. The shuttle we escaped in had a beacon, right? A way for you to signal your people? Rilke nodded slowly. Yes, a quantum entangled transmitter. One-time use. Then use it. Tell them where to find you. Ryan began pulling on the emergency suit. I just need to buy you enough time. Rilke held his gaze for a long moment. Her amber eyes filled with emotions Ryan couldn't name. Then she nodded. A decision made. The third moon of Alara, she said quietly. That's where the sanctuary is. If you survive this, come find us there. Ryan paused, surprised by the trust implied in that revelation. I will. Sia was still crying, her small face wet with tears. Ryan gently wiped them away. Hey, no tears, kid. I'm not going far. He managed a smile. Besides, someone has to protect Mimi, right? The child nodded, sniffling. Promise you'll bring her back? Promise. Ryan took the doll, tucking it securely inside his suit. Then, on impulse, he leaned forward and pressed a kiss to Sia's forehead. Be good for your mom. He straightened, turning to Rilke. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, words unnecessary. Then Rilke moved forward and placed her hands on either side of his face. Her patterns shifted in a complex dance of light across her skin. May the stars guide your path, she murmured, then pressed her forehead to his, in what he understood was a gesture of profound connection among her people. Ryan closed his eyes briefly, allowing himself to feel the warmth of that connection. Then he stepped back, sealing his helmet. Get to the airlock, he instructed. As soon as I'm clear, make for the edge of the belt. Don't stop for anything. Rilke nodded, gathering Sia close. Ryan Cole, she said, her voice tight with emotion. Remember your promise. Ryan gave a final nod, then cycled the airlock open. The vacuum of space greeted him, cold and unforgiving. He launched himself away from the vehicle, activating the suit's small propulsion unit. In his arms, he clutched Sia's doll, the tracker inside now broadcasting at full strength. Behind him, the maintenance vehicle veered sharply, disappearing behind a massive asteroid. Ryan flew in the opposite direction, making himself an obvious target. It didn't take long for the Syndicate to notice. One of their ships broke off from the pursuit, turning toward him. Ryan pushed his suit's thrusters to maximum, zigzagging between asteroids. A targeting scanner washed over him, the Syndicate ship's systems locking onto the tracker's signal. Ryan dodged behind a spinning rock just as an energy pulse lanced through the space he'd occupied a second earlier. They wanted him alive, he realized. Or rather, they wanted the tracker, and what they thought it was attached to. That gave him an advantage. Ryan continued his desperate flight through the asteroid field, drawing the Syndicate ship deeper into the labyrinth of tumbling rocks. His suit's oxygen levels ticked steadily downward, the propulsion unit burning fuel at an unsustainable rate. But with each passing minute, Rilke and Sia were getting closer to the edge of the belt, closer to safety. A warning light flashed in Ryan's helmet display. Oxygen at 30%, propulsion fuel at 25%. He wouldn't last much longer. Ahead, he spotted a peculiar asteroid, misshapen, with deep crevices and a hollow core visible through a massive crack in its surface. An idea formed. desperate but possible. Ryan altered course, diving toward the asteroid. The Syndicate ship followed, closing the distance rapidly. Another energy pulse struck nearby, sending fragments spinning away into the void. He reached the asteroid, diving into the crack that led to its hollow interior. The space inside was dark, littered with smaller rocks and ice crystals that sparkled in his suit lights. Ryan positioned himself near the entrance, waiting. The Syndicate ship approached cautiously, hovering outside the crack. A scanning beam probed the interior, searching for the tracker's signal. Ryan removed the doll from his suit, holding it out so the scanner would detect it clearly. Then, he retreated deeper into the asteroid's hollow core, finding a recess where he could shelter. As expected, the Syndicate didn't risk their ship in the confined space. Instead, a shuttle detached from the larger vessel, small enough to maneuver through the crack. It entered slowly, lights sweeping the interior. Ryan waited, oxygen ticking down, heart pounding. The shuttle settled in the center of the hollow, its hatch opening to deploy 2 operatives in EVA gear. They moved with practiced efficiency, scanning for the tracker. This was it. One chance. Ryan launched himself from his hiding place, using the last of his propulsion fuel in a desperate burst of speed. He hurled the doll deep into a crevice on the far side of the hollow, then changed direction, heading for the shuttle. The operatives spotted him, weapons raising. But their attention was divided between the human, suddenly in their midst, and the tracker signal now emanating from the crevice. Ryan collided with the first operative, the impact sending them both tumbling in the zero gravity. He grappled for the operative's weapon, knocking it away, then used the momentum to propel himself toward the shuttle's open hatch. The second operative fired, the shot grazing Ryan's suit. Warning alarms blared in his helmet as his oxygen began to vent into space. Desperation, lending him strength. Ryan hurled himself into the shuttle. His hands found the controls, similar enough to systems he'd salvaged over the years to be familiar. He slammed the hatch control, sealing it, just as the operatives realized his intention. The shuttle's engines engaged at his command, lifting off from the asteroid's interior. Ryan guided it toward the crack, ignoring the pounding on the hull as the stranded operatives realized they'd been duped. His vision was beginning to dim, oxygen levels critical. But the shuttle burst free of the asteroid, accelerating away from the surprise Syndicate ship. Ryan punched in the coordinates Rilke had given him, the third moon of Alara, then activated the hyperdrive. As the stars streaked around him, Ryan's last conscious thought was of Sia's tearful face and the promise he'd made. A promise he intended to keep. The stolen Syndicate shuttle emerged from hyperspace near the Alara system, its systems operating on emergency power only. Inside, Ryan Cole drifted in and out of consciousness, his body still recovering from oxygen deprivation. The ship's automated systems detected the habitable moon and adjusted course accordingly, beginning descent procedures. Ryan roused enough to take manual control for the final approach, guiding the shuttle toward a dense jungle region where sensors indicated no settlements or technology signatures. The landing was rough, the shuttle's damaged systems barely responsive. It crashed through the upper canopy of massive trees, bouncing off thick branches before finally coming to rest in a clearing. Steam hissed from ruptured coolant lines, and the hull bore deep scores from its violent arrival. Ryan dragged himself from the pilot's seat, every muscle screaming in protest. His lungs still burned from the near asphyxiation, and a wound on his leg, sustained during the crash, bled steadily. But he was alive, and he had reached Alara. Now he just had to find Rilke and Sia in a moon-sized jungle with no tracker, no comms, and limited supplies. One step at a time, he muttered to himself, rummaging through the shuttle's emergency supplies. He found medical equipment, ration packs, a water purifier, and, most valuable, a multi-tool and portable scanner. Ryan treated his leg wound, then stepped out into the alien environment. The air was thick and humid, filled with the sounds of unfamiliar wildlife. Massive trees with blue-green foliage stretched skyward, their trunks wider than Ryan was tall. Flowering vines draped between them, creating natural archways. It was beautiful, in a primal, untamed way. But Ryan had no time to appreciate the scenery. Somewhere on this moon was the sanctuary Rilke had mentioned, and hopefully, Rilke and Sia themselves, if they had escaped the syndicate. He activated the scanner, sweeping for any sign of technology or artificial structures. Nothing within range. Either the sanctuary was well hidden, or he had landed too far from it. Ryan consulted the shuttle's navigation data, confirming his position on the moon. If the sanctuary was a settlement of any size, it would likely be near water. He adjusted the scanner parameters to search for large bodies of water instead. There, about 15 kilometers northeast, a significant lake or small sea. It was as good a starting point as any. Ryan gathered what supplies he could carry, including a syndicate pulse rifle salvaged from the shuttle's weapons locker. Then, with a final glance at the crashed vessel, he set off into the jungle. The journey was arduous. The terrain was uneven, the vegetation sometimes so thick he had to cut his way through. Unfamiliar insects buzzed around him, and once, a large predator, something like a six-legged panther with iridescent scales, stalked him for nearly an hour before losing interest. By the time the sun began to set, Ryan had covered less than half the distance to the water. He found a sheltered spot between the massive roots of one of the giant trees and made camp, using the scanner to keep watch while he rested. Sleep came in fitful bursts, his dreams filled with images of Sia's tearful face and Rilke's amber eyes. He woke at dawn, stiff and sore, but determined to press on. The second day of travel proved even more challenging than the first. The jungle grew denser, the ground becoming marshy as he approached the water. Twice he had to backtrack when his path was blocked by impassable terrain. It was mid-afternoon when the scanner picked up its first anomaly, a faint energy signature, carefully shielded, but detectable to the sensitive syndicate equipment. Ryan adjusted his course, moving toward it with renewed determination. The jungle began to thin slightly, giving way to a series of clearings. In one of them, Ryan found evidence of recent activity, crushed vegetation, a discarded food wrapper of non-local origin, a partial footprint in soft earth. Someone had been here, and recently. Ryan continued more cautiously now, scanner constantly sweeping. The energy signature grew stronger, though still remarkably well shielded. Whatever technology was creating, it had been designed specifically to avoid detection. He was so focused on the scanner that he almost missed the tripwire stretched across his path. Ryan froze, 1 foot hovering above the nearly invisible filament. Carefully, he stepped back, examining the trap. It wasn't syndicate design. The materials were cruder, improvised from local resources combined with salvage tech. The sort of trap set by people who wanted to know if anyone was approaching their territory. Ryan deliberated, then deliberately triggered the wire. If this was the sanctuary's outer perimeter, he wanted them to know he was here, and that he wasn't trying to sneak in. The response was almost immediate. The scanner detected movement in 3 directions, coordinated, disciplined movement of multiple individuals converging on his position. Ryan set down his weapons and raised his hands, waiting. They emerged from the jungle like ghosts, 7 figures in camouflage that shifted colors to match their surroundings. Their features were hidden behind masks, but their movements marked them as trained fighters. Each carried a weapon, aimed squarely at Ryan. "I'm looking for Rilke and Sia," he said clearly, keeping his hands visible. "My name is Ryan Cole. They told me to find them here." The figures exchanged glances, but said nothing. One of them approached, scanning Ryan with a handheld device, similar to his own. "He's clean," the figure announced in a feminine voice. "No active trackers or transmitters." Another stepped forward. "How did you get here, human?" This moon is unlisted in navigation charts. Rilke told me where to find it, Ryan repeated. I stole a syndicate shuttle after helping them escape. Is she here? Is Sia safe? The figures conferred briefly, in a language Ryan's translator couldn't decipher. Finally, the apparent leader nodded. Bind his hands. Cover his eyes. We take him to the council. Ryan submitted to having his wrists bound and a hood placed over his head. He was guided through the jungle for what seemed like hours, though his sense of time was distorted by the disorientation. The terrain changed. Level ground gave way to an incline, then stairs cut into stone. When the hood was finally removed, Ryan found himself in what appeared to be a natural cavern, illuminated by bioluminescent fungi that cast a soft blue glow over the scene. Before him sat a semicircle of individuals, some humanoid, others distinctly alien, all watching him with varying degrees of suspicion. This is the human who claims to know Rilke and her daughter, announced his captor. An elderly figure at the center of the semicircle leaned forward. His skin was the same lavender hue as Rilke's and Sia's, though faded with age, the iridescent patterns muted, but still visible. Why should we believe you? He asked, his voice carrying the same melodic quality as Rilke's. How do we know you're not a syndicate spy? Ryan met his gaze steadily. Because I nearly died leading their ships away so Rilke and Sia could escape. Because Sia asked me to marry her mother, and I promised I'd come find them. Because Rilke trusted me enough to tell me where your sanctuary is located. Murmurs rippled through the council at this. The elderly alien studied Ryan for a long moment, then nodded to someone behind him. Ryan turned to see a figure emerge from the shadows. His heart leaped as Rilke stepped into the light, her amber eyes wide with disbelief and something else, something that made her patterns dance across her skin in a symphony of light. Ryan, she whispered, you're alive? He managed a smile despite his exhaustion. I keep my promises. Rilke moved forward, ignoring the council's murmurs. With trembling hands, she undid his bonds. How? The syndicate ship? I stole their shuttle, Ryan explained. Crashed it about a day's journey from here. Before Rilke could respond, a small voice cried out from the entrance to the cavern. Ryan! Sia burst into the chamber, her luminous eyes wide with joy, her patterns pulsing in bright, rapid sequences. She launched herself at Ryan, who caught her in a one-armed hug, his other hand still being freed by Rilke. You came back, the child exclaimed, clinging to him. I told Mom you would. I told her. Ryan found himself grinning despite the solemnity of the council chamber. Course I did, kid. I promised, didn't I? Sia pulled back suddenly, her expression growing serious. Where's Mimi? Is she okay? Ryan's smile faded. I'm sorry. Sia. I had to leave her behind. I used her to trick the bad men, so they'd follow the tracker instead of you. Sia's face fell, but she nodded bravely. You saved Mom. That's more important than a doll. Ryan knelt to her level. Hey, I promise I'll find you another one. Maybe even better. The elderly alien cleared his throat. Rilke, you vouch for this human? Rilke straightened, one hand resting protectively on Sia's shoulder. With my life, Elder Karras. This human risked everything to save us when he had no obligation. He faced the syndicate forces alone to ensure our escape. Her patterns shifted with conviction. I trust him completely. The elder, Karras, studied Ryan with renewed interest. Come forward, human. Ryan approached the semicircle, conscious of the many eyes upon him. Sia remained at his side, her small hand finding his and holding tight. Karras gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. It showed the maintenance vehicle Rilke had piloted, emerging from the asteroid belt just as 3 syndicate ships converged on its position. We received Rilke's transmission, Karras explained. Our fastest ship was dispatched immediately. They arrived in time to witness this. The hologram shifted to show the syndicate ships surrounding the vehicle. Then, suddenly, a sleek vessel unlike any Ryan had seen before appeared. Its design fluid and organic, almost living. It interposed itself between the syndicate ships and the maintenance vehicle, generating some kind of energy field that disabled the pursuers. We rescued Rilke and Sia, Karras continued. But they insisted you might still be alive, that you had led the enemy away. He inclined his head slightly. It seems they were right to have faith in you. Ryan watched the recording, relief washing over him. Then they made it safely. That's what matters. Karras exchanged glances with the other council members. What matters, Ryan Cole, is why a human salvager would risk his life for people he had just met. People not of his kind. Ryan shifted uncomfortably under their scrutiny. It was the right thing to do. A rare sentiment in these times, observed another council member. A being with blue-tinted skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Especially from a human. Not all humans are the same, Ryan countered. Just like not all of your people are the same. This earned him a few approving nods from the council. Karras leaned back, his aged fingers steepled before him. You have earned the right to rest and recover among us. Ryan Cole. A dwelling has been prepared, as Rilke anticipated your arrival. His gaze sharpened. But understand this. Our sanctuary remains secret. Few outsiders have ever been permitted to stay. Your presence here is a privilege that can be revoked. Ryan nodded. I understand. Very well. Rilke will show you to your quarters. Karras made a gesture that clearly dismissed them. We will speak again tomorrow. As they left the cavern, Ryan became aware of his surroundings for the first time. What he had taken for a simple cave system opened into a vast underground complex. A city built within the living rock of the moon. Bioluminescent plants provided light, while cleverly designed channels brought fresh water from unseen sources. People of various species moved through the passageways, some giving Ryan curious looks, others deliberately avoiding eye contact. How many live here? He asked Rilke as she guided him through the maze. Nearly 3,000, she replied. Refugees from the war, mostly. Those whose worlds were destroyed or occupied. Those who, like my people, were hunted for what they are. Saya skipped ahead of them, greeting others by name, clearly at home in this hidden world. Her patterns danced with excitement as she occasionally looked back to make sure Ryan was still following. And the syndicate doesn't know about this place? Ryan asked. Rilke shook her head. The moon is shielded by ancient technology, progenitor design. It appears uninhabitable on most scans. The few ships that do land are usually scavengers, or those seeking shelter from storms. They never penetrate far enough into the jungle to find us. They ascended a spiral stairway, carved directly into the rock, emerging into an area that seemed residential. Dwellings had been built into the natural cavern walls, their entrances decorated with plants and woven tapestries. Rilke led him to one such dwelling, pushing aside a curtain of iridescent beads. This will be your home for as long as you choose to stay, she said. The space beyond was simple but comfortable. A main room with cushioned seating, a small kitchen area, a separate sleeping chamber. Potted plants added color and life, while crystals embedded in the ceiling provided warm light. The council had it prepared when I told them you might come, Rilke explained, watching his reaction. It's not much, but... It's perfect, Ryan interrupted. Thank you. Sia had already made herself at home, examining every corner of the dwelling with childish curiosity. It's next to ours, she informed Ryan happily. We can visit whenever we want. Rilke smiled indulgently at her daughter. Within reason, little star. Ryan needs rest after his journey. As if her words had broken a dam. Exhaustion washed over Ryan. The adrenaline that had kept him going for days finally ebbed, leaving him swaying on his feet. Rilke noticed immediately, moving to his side. "Sit before you fall," she admonished gently, guiding him to a cushioned bench. "When did you last eat? Or sleep properly?" Ryan tried to remember. "Not sure. The days kind of blurred together." Rilke shook her head, her pattern shifting in what Ryan was beginning to recognize as concern. "Sia, go to our dwelling and bring the healing tea and some of the bread from breakfast." The child nodded and darted away, clearly pleased to be helpful. Alone with Rilke, Ryan found himself suddenly unsure what to say. They had shared life-threatening danger, made desperate decisions together, but now, in this moment of quiet safety, he felt oddly vulnerable. "I wasn't sure you'd made it," he finally said. "When the syndicate caught up to you." Rilke sat beside him, her amber eyes soft. "I feared the same for you. When we saw the syndicate ships change course, following something deeper into the asteroid field, I knew what you had done." Her patterns rippled across her skin. "It was the bravest thing I've ever witnessed." Ryan shook his head. "Not brave, just necessary." Rilke's hand found his, her touch warm and unexpectedly comforting. "You keep saying that, diminishing your actions. Why?" Ryan stared at their joined hands, unable to meet her gaze. "Because heroes don't survive in this galaxy, Rilke. They sacrifice themselves and leave others behind to mourn. I learned that lesson the hard way." Understanding dawned in her eyes. "Your family, during the war—" Ryan nodded. "I was serving on a Union carrier when the syndicate bombed our colony. By the time I got back, there was nothing left. No one left." His voice roughened with old pain. "I'd volunteered for that assignment. Thought I was protecting them by fighting. Instead, I wasn't there when they needed me most." Rilke's patterns shifted in sympathy, a gentle ebb and flow of light. "So you became a salvager, taking only from the abandoned, avoiding attachment. It seemed safer that way." Her fingers tightened around his. "And yet, when Sia called for help, you answered." Before Ryan could respond, Sia returned, arms full of provisions. The moment of intimacy passed, but something had shifted between them. A deeper understanding, perhaps, or the beginning of something neither was ready to name. The next days fell into a pattern. Ryan recovered his strength, exploring the sanctuary with Sia as his enthusiastic guide. The child introduced him to everyone they encountered, proudly announcing, "This is Ryan. He saved us from the bad men." Despite his initial discomfort with the attention, Ryan found himself warming to the sanctuary and its inhabitants. The underground city was a marvel of adaptation and ingenuity. Its residents had created a self-sustaining ecosystem, growing food in hydroponic gardens lit by redirected sunlight, harvesting medicinal plants from the jungle above, generating power through geothermal vents. More remarkable was the community itself, a patchwork of species and cultures that had somehow forged unity from the fragments of their shattered worlds. Ryan met former scientists, soldiers, artists, and farmers, each contributing their skills to the sanctuary's survival. Rilke, he learned, had been a decorated pilot in the Union Navy before the war turned against non-human species. When human supremacist factions gained influence, she and other alien personnel had been reassigned to research facilities, a thin euphemism for imprisonment and experimentation. She had escaped during a syndicate raid, stealing a ship and fleeing with several others of her kind. Sia had been born in space during that flight. Her father, another of Rilke's species, but with stronger progenitor genetic markers, had sacrificed himself during a later syndicate ambush, buying time for Rilke and infant Sia to escape. "He would have liked you," Rilke told Ryan one evening as they shared a meal in his dwelling. Sia had fallen asleep on a pile of cushions in the corner, exhausted from a day of play with the sanctuary's other children. Keth had the same directness, the same willingness to act while others were still debating. Ryan glanced at the sleeping child. She has his courage, I think. Rilke smiled softly. Yes, and his stubbornness. They ate in companionable silence for a while, the easy comfort of their interactions now familiar. Ryan had been at the sanctuary for nearly 2 weeks, longer than he'd stayed anywhere since becoming a salvager. Yet, he felt no urgency to leave. The council has been discussing you, Rilke said suddenly. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Good discussions or bad? Mixed, she admitted. Some believe you could be valuable to the sanctuary. Your knowledge of salvage operations, your experience navigating the post-war territories. She hesitated. Others worry that your presence endangers us, that you might inadvertently lead the syndicate here. Ryan set down his utensil, appetite gone. They want me to leave. Some do, Rilke acknowledged. Others, including Elder Karras, believe you have earned the right to stay, if you wish. Her patterns shifted nervously. The decision ultimately rests with you. Ryan stared into the distance, considering. He had no ship, no salvage business anymore. Everything he'd owned had been destroyed or left behind. He could start over elsewhere, of course. He had skills that were valuable in the lawless expanse of space. But the thought of leaving, of never seeing Sia's excited face when she discovered something new to show him, of never again witnessing the intricate dance of Rilke's patterns when she laughed, left an unexpected hollowness in his chest. What do you want, Rilke? He asked quietly. Her amber eyes met his, her patterns flowing in complex sequences he still couldn't interpret. I want you to stay, she said simply. Sia wants it too, but it must be your choice. Before Ryan could respond, an alarm echoed through the sanctuary, a pulsing, 3-tone signal that sent Rilke bolt upright, her patterns flaring in alarm. What is it? Ryan asked, already moving to gather the still sleeping Sia. Perimeter breach, Rilke replied tersely. Multiple intruders. The sanctuary erupted into controlled chaos. Residents moved with practiced efficiency, sealing passages, gathering children, taking up defensive positions. Ryan followed Rilke to a central command center carved into the heart of the underground city. Elder Karras was already there, surrounded by the sanctuary's defense coordinators. Holographic displays showed the jungle above, where dark figures moved with military precision toward the hidden entrances. Syndicate, Karras confirmed grimly. A full retrieval team. Somehow they found us. Ryan studied the displays. How many? 27, replied a coordinator. Heavily armed. They've neutralized 3 of our outer sensor arrays already. Rilke handed the still drowsy Sia to a caretaker who was gathering children. Take her to the emergency shelters, she instructed. Keep them quiet and hidden. Sia, now fully awake, clung to her mother. Mom, don't go! Rilke knelt, pressing her forehead to her daughter's. I must help protect our home, little star. I'll come for you soon, I promise. Sia's eyes found Ryan. You'll keep Mom safe, promise? Ryan nodded solemnly. Promise, kid. As the caretaker led Sia away, Ryan turned back to the tactical display. They're moving too directly, he observed. As if they know exactly where the entrances are. This isn't a search pattern. Karras's aged face hardened. You think we have a traitor among us? Or they captured someone who knew, Ryan suggested. Or... A cold suspicion formed. My shuttle. The one I stole. It might have had tracking capabilities I didn't detect. Rilke shook her head. Our scanners would have found it. Not if it was dormant until activated remotely, Ryan countered. It's syndicate tech. It could have capabilities we don't understand. Karras exchanged glances with his defense coordinators. Regardless of how they found us, they are here now. We must protect the sanctuary. He turned to Rilke. Ready the evacuation ships. If the outer defenses fail, We must be prepared to leave. Ryan studied the approaching forces, their formation, their equipment, their methodical advance. All spoke of a well-planned operation. This isn't just about Sia, he realized aloud. They're after the sanctuary itself, the progenitor technology that shields it. Karis nodded grimly. We have always known this day might come. We have preparations in place. But Ryan could see the fear behind the elders' confident words. The sanctuary housed thousands, including children and elders. An evacuation would be chaotic, with many likely lost in the process. Let me go out there, he said suddenly. I can slow them down, maybe redirect them. Rilke turned to him, alarm flashing across her patterns. No, they'll kill you on sight. Not if they think I have what they want. Ryan met Carusa's gaze steadily. Let me take one of your ships. Make it obvious I'm fleeing with something valuable. The Syndicate knows me now. They'll assume I'm protecting Sia. Karis considered this. A diversion. Give our people time to strengthen defenses or evacuate if necessary. It would be suicide, Rilke protested. They won't be fooled for long. Ryan turned to her. I don't plan on being caught. Just leading them away long enough to give you an advantage. He hesitated, then added softly, I promised Sia I'd keep you safe. This is how I do that. Rilke's patterns surged with emotion. You promised her you'd come back too. And I will, Ryan insisted. I just need a fast ship and a head start. Karis made the decision. Prepare the scout vessel, he ordered a coordinator. It's our fastest craft. He turned to Ryan. We will be grateful for whatever time you can give us. Ryan Cole. Rilke clearly wanted to protest further, but her military training won out. She nodded tersely. I'll take you to the launch bay. They moved quickly through the sanctuary, now humming with defensive preparations. The launch bay was a marvel of engineering, a massive cavern with an iris-like ceiling that could open to the sky, concealed by holographic camouflage that mimicked the jungle canopy. The scout vessel waited, sleek and predatory, its organic lines reminiscent of the ship that had rescued Rilke and Sia from the asteroid belt. A technician hurriedly explained the basics of the controls to Ryan, who grasped them quickly, noting similarities to other ships he'd piloted. It's partially sentient, the technician added. It will anticipate your needs if you let it. Rilke had disappeared briefly during these instructions. She returned carrying a small device, which she pressed into Ryan's hand. A quantum transponder, she explained. Paired with one I keep, it will allow you to find us again, no matter where we go. Ryan closed his fingers around it. I'm coming back, he promised. This is just a temporary goodbye. Rilke's patterns rippled with emotion. Then, in a sudden movement, she stepped forward and pressed her lips to his, a human gesture she must have learned during her time in the Union Navy, but invested with the intensity of her own culture's passion. Ryan froze in surprise, then responded, one hand rising to cup her face. The kiss was brief, but fierce, a promise and a plea combined. When they separated, Rilke's patterns were dancing in rapid, complex sequences. That, she said, slightly breathless, was to ensure you remember what you're coming back to. Ryan managed a smile, as if I could forget. The moment was broken by an alert from the command center. The Syndicate forces had breached the outer perimeter. They had minutes, not hours. Ryan boarded the scout vessel, familiarizing himself with the controls. The ship responded to his touch almost eagerly, systems coming online with a harmonic hum. Through the viewport, he could see Rilke step back to a safe distance, her face set in determined lines, her patterns steady now. The launch bay's ceiling irised open, revealing the night sky above. Ryan guided the ship upward, accelerating hard, once clear of the camouflage. As expected, it took only moments for the Syndicate forces to detect him. Weapons fire lanced through the darkness, missing the agile craft as Ryan pushed it to maximum speed. The ship's scanner showed 3 Syndicate vessels in pursuit, breaking off from the ground assault to chase the fleeing scout. The diversion was working. Ryan smiled grimly, pushing the ship harder, heading for the upper atmosphere. Behind him, the Sanctuary's defenders would be using this opportunity to counterattack against the reduced Syndicate ground forces. He had bought them time. Now he just needed to stay alive long enough to use it. The scout vessel was everything the technician had promised. Responsive, intuitive, faster than anything Ryan had ever piloted. It seemed to anticipate his maneuvers, adjusting thrust and angle with minimal input. Together, they danced through Alara's atmosphere, staying just ahead of the pursuing Syndicate ships. But the pursuers were relentless and coordinated. When Ryan juked left, one vessel was already moving to cut off his escape route. When he dove toward the planet's surface, another was waiting in his path. They were hurting him, Ryan realized, using their superior numbers to funnel him toward a specific area. The scout vessel's scanner warned of a 4th ship approaching, larger than the others, a destroyer-class vessel. The Syndicate was bringing in heavy reinforcements. Ryan needed a new plan. Leading them in circles around Alara would only work for so long before they managed to trap or disable him. And if he jumped to hyperspace, he would be leading them away from the Sanctuary, but might never find his way back. The quantum transponder Rilke had given him sat on the console, its soft glow a reminder of his promise. Ryan studied it, an idea forming. The Syndicate wanted progenitor technology, the genetic keys that would unlock ancient, powerful systems. They believed Sia was such a key. What if he could make them believe he had access to something even more valuable? Ryan adjusted course, diving back toward the moon's surface. Not toward the Sanctuary, but toward a different region entirely. A massive mountain range on the far side, its peaks shrouded in perpetual mist. The Syndicate ships followed, likely confused by this change in tactics, but unwilling to lose their quarry. Ryan pushed the scout vessel lower, skimming treetops, using the terrain to break their targeting locks. The mountain range loomed ahead, its jagged peaks piercing the clouds. Ryan guided the ship into a narrow canyon, barely wide enough for the slim scout. Behind him, one of the Syndicate vessels attempted to follow and clipped its wing on a rocky outcropping, sending it spinning into the canyon wall in a spectacular explosion. 2 left, plus the approaching destroyer. Ryan weaved through the canyon system, the scout vessel responding to his guidance with almost uncanny precision. He was looking for something specific, something he had glimpsed on the Sanctuary's geological surveys during his time there. There, a cave entrance, massive enough to admit the scout vessel, but unlikely to accommodate the bulkier Syndicate ships. Ryan banked hard, diving into the darkness. The ship's sensors mapped the cave system as he flew, revealing a network of tunnels large enough for flight. One of the Syndicate vessels attempted to follow, hovering at the cave entrance, unwilling to risk the tight confines. The other circled above, likely coordinating with the approaching destroyer. Ryan flew deeper into the mountain, following the sensor map toward what appeared to be a large chamber. The tunnel widened suddenly, opening into a vast cavern that took his breath away. The space was immense, large enough to house the entire Sanctuary twice over. But what made Ryan's heart race was what filled it. Crystalline structures rising from floor to ceiling, glowing with faint internal light, arranged in patterns too regular to be natural. Progenitor ruins, actual, intact progenitor technology, hidden within the mountain. Ryan landed the scout vessel on a flat area near the center of the chamber. The ship's sensors were going haywire, detecting energy signatures unlike anything in its database. Whatever this place was, it was still active, still functioning after thousands of years. He exited the ship cautiously, pulse pistol drawn. The air was breathable but thin, the temperature cool but not uncomfortable. The crystalline structures loomed around him, their glow pulsing in slow, rhythmic patterns that reminded him of Rilke's skin. Ryan approached the nearest crystal, studying its surface. Intricate patterns were etched into it, similar to the iridescent markings on Rilke and Sia, but vastly more complex. He reached out, his fingers hovering just above the surface. A voice spoke behind him. "I wouldn't touch that if I were you." Ryan spun, weapon raised. A figure stood near his ship, humanoid, but clearly not human, with the same lavender skin as Rilke and Sia, though more intense in hue. The iridescent patterns on their skin were extraordinarily complex, flowing and shifting in ways Ryan had never seen before. "Who are you?" Ryan demanded, not lowering his weapon. The figure smiled, an expression somehow both familiar and alien. "A caretaker. A guardian. You may call me Virai." Their gaze shifted to the cave entrance, where the glow of Syndicate scanning equipment was now visible. "You've brought trouble to my doorstep, human." Ryan kept his weapon steady. "Your progenitor." Virai inclined their head. "A descendant, with fewer generations of dilution than most." "Yes." They gestured to the crystals around them. "This is a nexus, a control center for systems that span half this galaxy. The Syndicate would tear it apart to access even a fraction of its capabilities." Ryan glanced toward the entrance. "They're coming. Is there another way out of here?" "Many," Virai replied. "But that's not what you really want to know, is it?" They approached, moving with a fluid grace that reminded Ryan of Rilke. "You want to know how to protect the sanctuary, how to protect Rilke and her daughter." Ryan lowered his weapon slightly. "You know them?" "I know of them. Rilke is of my bloodline, distant but direct. Sia." Virai's patterns shifted in what might have been concern. "Sia is special, a genetic throwback with stronger progenitor markers than any born in centuries. The Syndicate is right to covet her, though they misunderstand her true value." The sound of engines echoed through the cavern, the Syndicate ships, positioning themselves at the entrance. They hadn't entered yet, likely scanning for traps or defenses. "We don't have much time," Ryan said urgently. "If you know how to help them." Virai nodded. "I do. But it requires your assistance." They moved to a crystalline console near the center of the chamber. "This nexus has defenses that have lain dormant for millennia. I can activate them, drive the Syndicate from this moon entirely. But I need a conduit, someone physically present at the sanctuary to channel the energy." Ryan frowned. "Why not go yourself?" "I cannot leave the nexus unattended," Virai explained. "And my presence would draw attention the sanctuary cannot afford." They turned to Ryan. "But you, a human, unexpected, unassuming, you could return bearing a fragment of the nexus. Through it, I could extend the ancient shields, protect the sanctuary from detection permanently." Ryan hesitated, suspicion warring with desperate hope. "Why would you help us? Help me?" Virai's patterns flowed in complex ripples. "Because Sia represents the future of my people. Because Rilke has protected her at great cost. And because you, Ryan Cole, have proven yourself worthy of trust through your actions." They held out a hand, in which rested a crystal shard no larger than Ryan's thumb. "Will you help us?" Ryan studied the alien being, searching for deception, finding none. He slowly nodded. "Tell me what to do." Virai pressed the crystal into Ryan's palm. It was warm to the touch, pulsing faintly in time with his heartbeat. "Return to the sanctuary. Place this at its center, where the council meets. It will do the rest." "And the Syndicate?" Ryan gestured toward the cave entrance, where shadows now moved against the light. Virai smiled, their patterns shifting to configurations that somehow conveyed both menace and satisfaction. "Leave them to me. This nexus has protected itself for thousands of years. It can handle a few corporate soldiers. As if in response to these words, the crystalline structures throughout the cavern pulsed brighter, their glow intensifying. Ryan felt a subtle vibration through the soles of his boots, a building energy that raised the hair on his arms. "Go now," Virai urged. "Take the western tunnel. It will lead you to an exit near the sanctuary. Hurry." Ryan hesitated only a moment longer. "Thank you," he said simply, then turned and sprinted toward the indicated passage. Behind him, the cavern erupted in brilliant light. The crystal structures now blazed like captive stars, their energy coalescing around Virai in a corona of power. Ryan glanced back to see the progenitor descendant hovering above the ground, arms outstretched, patterns flowing across their skin like liquid fire. The western tunnel was narrow but navigable, sloping generally downward. Ryan ran, the crystal shard clutched tightly in his hand, its warmth pulsing in time with his racing heart. Above and behind him, he heard the muffled sounds of energy discharge, the Nexus's defenses engaging with the Syndicate intruders. The tunnel seemed endless, branching occasionally but always with one path clearly illuminated by a subtle glow that matched the crystal in his hand. Ryan followed these markers, trusting Virai's guidance. After what seemed like hours but was likely only minutes, Ryan saw light ahead, natural light filtering through vegetation. He emerged from the tunnel into the jungle, momentarily disoriented, until he spotted a familiar landmark. The sanctuary was less than a kilometer away. Ryan ran, driven by urgency, and the crystal's increasingly insistent pulse. Above, the sky flashed with energy discharges. The battle between the Nexus and the Syndicate forces had spilled into the atmosphere. He could only hope the sanctuary's defenders were holding their own against the ground assault. He reached one of the hidden entrances, finding it guarded by armed sanctuary residents who recognized him with obvious relief. "The Syndicate?" he gasped, catching his breath. "Still fighting in the North Quadrant," one guard replied. "Our defenses are holding, but they brought more forces than we expected." Ryan nodded. "I need to reach the council chamber, immediately." They escorted him through the sanctuary, which was in a state of organized emergency. Civilians had been moved to secure areas, while defenders maintained barricades at key points. The sounds of distant fighting echoed through the passages. The council chamber was being used as a command center. Elder Karras directed operations from the center of the room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the battle outside. He looked up in shock as Ryan entered. "You returned," the Elder said. "We thought you lost when your ship disappeared from our scanners." "No time to explain," Ryan replied, moving to the center of the chamber. "I need everyone to step back." The crystal in his hand was now almost painfully hot. Its pulse accelerated to a humming vibration. Ryan placed it carefully on the stone floor at the exact center of the circular room. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the crystal shard flared with blinding light, tendrils of energy spreading outward in a geometric pattern that matched the one etched into the chamber's floor, a pattern Ryan had never consciously noticed before. The tendrils reached the walls and continued, spreading throughout the sanctuary, following channels invisible until now. The air thrummed with power, a sensation both physical and somehow beyond physical, as if reality itself was being reshaped. Outside, the sounds of battle abruptly ceased. The holographic displays showed the Syndicate forces freezing in confusion. Their weapons stopped functioning. Their communication devices emitted only static. And, around the entire sanctuary, a shimmering barrier of energy materialized, translucent, but unmistakably present. "What have you done?" Karras whispered, awe in his ancient voice. Ryan stared at the crystal, now floating slightly above the floor, spinning slowly as it continued to emit pulses of energy. "I found help," he said simply. "Progenitor help." A commotion at the chamber entrance drew their attention. Rilka burst in, her combat armor scorched from battle, her amber eyes wild with emotion. She froze at the sight of Ryan, disbelief and joy warring on her face. "You came back," she breathed. Ryan smiled. "I promised, didn't I?" Before she could respond, the chamber filled with a new light, not from the crystal, but projected from it, forming a holographic image of Virai. The progenitor descendants' features were recognizable, but distorted by the same energy that now flowed through the sanctuary. "The shield is established," Virai announced, their voice resonating with power. "The syndicate forces are neutralized, their ships disabled. Their memories of this place will be adjusted." Kara stepped forward. "Who are you?" "A guardian," Virai replied. "One who has watched from afar until now." Their gaze found Rilke. "Your bloodline has protected the last pure descendant well. The child Sia carries the future of our people within her genetic code." Rilke straightened. "Sia is my daughter, not a genetic repository." Virai's holographic features softened. "Of course. That is why she has thrived, raised with love rather than purpose." They turned to Ryan. "The human proved his worth. Remember that not all species are defined by their worst examples." The hologram began to fade. "The sanctuary is now protected permanently. The shield will allow entry and exit to those who belong, while remaining impenetrable to those who intend harm." Virai's form became transparent, their voice fading. "When Sia is grown, bring her to the Nexus. There is much she must learn, but not yet. Let her be a child first. Let her be loved." With those words, the hologram vanished, though the crystal continued to pulse with energy, now settled into a steady, comforting rhythm. The chamber erupted in excited conversation, but Ryan had eyes only for Rilke. She moved toward him, her patterns dancing with emotions too complex for him to interpret. "You found a progenitor," she said, wonder in her voice. "You saved us all." Ryan shook his head. "I just made a new friend, and kept a promise." Rilke's hand found his. "Sia will be overjoyed to see you. She never doubted you would return." "Smart kid," Ryan said softly. "Takes after her mother." The sanctuary celebrated that night. The syndicate forces had been removed, transported to the edge of the system with no memory of Alara or its hidden moon. According to Virai's holographic messenger, who appeared briefly to confirm the danger had passed. The crystal remained in the council chamber, a permanent conduit to the Nexus, ensuring the sanctuary's protection. Alara would remain a safe haven for refugees and those who sought peace away from the fractured, war-torn galaxy. Sia had indeed been overjoyed at Ryan's return, launching herself into his arms with tearful excitement. She had dragged him through the sanctuary, introducing him to everyone they passed as "my Ryan" with proprietary pride. Now, as the celebration continued around them, Ryan and Rilke stood on a balcony carved into the cavern wall, overlooking the underground city. The bioluminescent fungi cast a gentle blue glow over everything, creating an atmosphere of otherworldly peace. "What will you do now?" Rilke asked, her shoulder brushing against his. "Return to salvaging?" Ryan considered the question. His ship was gone. His old life effectively ended when he'd chosen to help Rilke and Sia escape the outpost. He could start over somewhere, he supposed. The galaxy was vast, with opportunities for someone with his skills. But the thought held no appeal. Not anymore. "I was thinking I might stay," he said quietly. "If that's an option." Rilke's patterns shifted in a now familiar sequence. Hope, tempered with caution. "The sanctuary would welcome you. The council has already discussed offering you a permanent place among us." "And what about you?" Ryan turned to face her. "Would you welcome me staying?" Rilke met his gaze, her amber eyes reflecting the blue light around them. "I thought I made that clear," she said, a smile tugging at her lips. "Or do you need another demonstration?" Ryan's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining. "Maybe I do." This time, their kiss was unhurried, a gentle exploration rather than a desperate plea. Rilke's patterns danced across her skin, flowing in harmonious sequences that Ryan was beginning to understand conveyed joy, desire, hope. When they parted, Ryan rested his forehead against hers in the gesture of her people. "I never thought I'd find a home again," he admitted softly. "After losing everything in the war, I convinced myself it was safer not to try." Rilke's hand came up to cup his face. "And now I think maybe the kid had the right idea all along," Ryan smiled. "Though we might want to date for a while before I take her up on that marriage suggestion." Rilke laughed, the sound musical and light. "Sia will be disappointed. She's been planning the ceremony since we arrived." "Has she now?" Ryan raised an eyebrow. "And what does this ceremony involve?" "Oh, white cloths, firefly lanterns, promises exchanged under the twin moons," Rilke replied, her patterns swirling playfully. "Nothing too elaborate." "Sounds nice, actually." Ryan pulled her closer. "Maybe someday." "Maybe," Rilke agreed. "For now, we have time." Below them, the celebration continued, the sanctuary's residents rejoicing in their newfound security. Somewhere among them, Sia played with the other children, safe and loved and free to be a child rather than a genetic key or a refugee. And on the balcony above, a salvage pilot who had spent years taking only from the abandoned discovered that sometimes the greatest treasures were found not among ruins, but in the eyes of those who saw value in what he had become. Ryan Cole had answered a child's desperate plea. "Please, marry my mom, human. She's all I have left," never expecting it would lead him not just to danger, but to healing, to family, to home. As Ilara's twin moons rose above the jungle, visible through cleverly designed shafts in the cavern ceiling, Ryan and Rilke stood together, no longer running from the past, but facing the future, whatever it might bring, together.